Hi guys, and welcome back to the Brain Reaction. This is Shane and Jade, your hosts,
Hey guys, how's it going?
and we just want to welcome you back to the second episode of the Brain Reaction. We want to start off by saying a massive thank you to everyone who tuned in to the first episode, and the amount of feedback that we got from the first episode is absolutely tremendous.
Yeah, we're absolutely stoked. It's amazing that so many people actually listened, and it's good to see that there's a great deal of people out there on social media really getting riled up. Yeah. So after our first podcast going live last Thursday, we have been bombarded with an amazing response, would you say, and great constructive criticism to lead us into this week's podcast. Thank you for all the support once again, and for all who listened in. We really do believe in knowledge being power, and that this is the time for an active rising youth to get involved in the social, cultural, and political arenas around them. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. So just a couple of things that we're going to be talking about today. For starters, we want to talk about the new Medicare bill that's coming in after the federal budget. There's a couple of massive things that got swept under the rug there, as well as that.
Supposedly.
Yeah. So another topical thing that you probably would have heard about at the moment is medicinal cannabis reform and also drug reform as a whole. But I think we're going to kick this off today with something that probably strikes pretty close to home for one of us at least. And we're going to talk about body image.
Yes.
So Jade, tell us all about it.
Well, as I'm sure all the listeners know, and if you don't, I'm actually a model. I model part-time whilst I'm not at university or recording for this podcast. So basically, I'm in the industry. I've seen other girls and other boys in the industry, what people actually go through, I suppose, to look what they need to look like for photo shoots and for runway being particularly bad. And I don't want to get in too much trouble of an agency or anything today, but I kind of want to give the truth, and I want to say sometimes it's really shit. You walk into a casting, and they're like, "Hey, you're fat, get out," and it hurts. And I think a lot of models are underestimated because you have to actually really have thick skin to kind of get through the day.
Yeah, it's fuck the kind of message that it portrays, and it goes hand in hand with the kind of general message that gets portrayed about what is health.
Definitely.
Good health in the eyes of a lot of the media is either being ridiculously muscular or ridiculously skinny, when in actual fact, both of those are completely opposite of good health.
Exactly. And you know what, you're reading Cosmopolitan or Vogue, and on one page it's like, you know what, love your body, like curvy women, woo, girl power. And then the next page it's like 10 steps to get the best abs. So conflicting, especially for young girls that are listening and reading these kind of newspapers and magazines and things.
And you get that in men's health as well. Everything seems to center around bodybuilding, sculpting your physique, things like that. But a lot of this is very unsustainable. A lot of the habits that it teaches, especially dietary habits, can tend to be very unhealthy.
Very restrictive, and I've seen lots of I go to the gym quite often myself, and so I've seen bodybuilders before competitions and things like that, and they're completely depleted. I've had a mate pulled over and be fined by a police officer for being so carb depleted because he physically wasn't aware enough to be driving, and it's insane how far people push themselves to be the perfect image.
Yeah, something interesting I know about nutrition is that, if you're lacking in things, when you start getting back on track and filling yourself with nutrients again, your body allocates it depending on where it needs it most. So the first places that start to get good nutrition are places like your vital organs, your eyes, your brain, your heart, your lungs, and your liver. The last thing that gets it is your skin, because it's not the most vital thing for your survival.
Yeah.
So a really good indicator of somebody's health is looking at their skin. And one thing that's very, very interesting is if you look at bodybuilders, they often have terrible acne.
Yes, I've noticed that.
Yeah, and same with models as well. Their skin isn't crash hot.
Yeah, and you know what, with the whole model thing, it's actually, bad skin can actually be a side effect of binging and purging, all those sorts of things that some girls do, like smoking excessively to keep the weight off, and it's really sad to see, and it kind of sucks. Can you imagine if everyone just woke up tomorrow and decided they love their bodies? How many industries would go out of business?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and
speaking of industries, I went to the Fitness and Health Expo last year and was absolutely blown away.
Hashtag Fitspo, Inspo.
I know, right? I was blown away. I went in there expecting, I'm like, okay, I'm going to learn about, all the latest up-to-date nutrition, how to stay fit, and how to really look after yourself. wow, was I fucking wrong. You walk in there, and all it is a big amusement park for like weight gain supplements, weight loss supplements, and the really hardcore training regimes that are just downright bad for you. And this is what happens when consumerism gets caught up with the
Yes.
fitness industry.
It's completely about marketing now.
Yeah.
And you know what? There's some girls, they're sitting there and watching TV and they're thinking, oh my gosh, that mango extract is going to help me lose weight. They're going out there and spending all their money on stupid supplements when it really only comes down to balanced diet and regular exercise.
Yeah, and when you look at it as well, like these businesses that go in and make these weight loss supplements and weight and muscle gain supplements as well, they're in it to make money.
They don't care
So
about
what
you.
happens is, you buy their product, they're not giving you what you ultimately want. Because if they give you what you want and you get to where you want to be,
Then you won't continue to buy the product.
that's it. You stop giving the money. They won't want that. They'll trap you in cycles as best they can by giving you unsustainable ways of building muscle, losing weight, and the supplements end up just generally not working.
Pretty much, because basically once you lose the weight, you stop the supplements, you gain the weight again, so you need to buy
That's it.
the supplements again.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's really sad to see. Yeah.
Like, a lot of it stems back to, say, mental health, things like, personal confidence and anxiety and things like that.
And body dysmorphia, that's a huge one. So
Yeah.
many people don't even know
Yeah,
they have it.
and like I was watching a documentary about steroid use, which is an insanely massive issue today. It stems from body dysmorphia, where you put, like, the more common conception of body dysmorphia is, skinny women who constantly strive to be skinnier because they keep thinking they're fat, even though they're like a skeleton.
Yeah,
right?
and I just want to throw in a few facts to back up what you're saying there. Actually, 45%, like that's huge. That's almost half the population of Australia, of women, and 23% of men in the healthy weight range think they are overweight. This is what body dysmorphia is. It's when you look at yourself and what you see is different to actually what you are. And it's really sad to see.
Yeah, that's right. And like body dysmorphia affects men massively as well. So
Yeah.
one of the things that I was watching in this documentary is that these men were huge. They were monsters, but they said, they're like, I'm not satisfied. I'm still small. I want to be bigger and I want to be bigger. And they're using steroids. They understand the health implications of using steroids, just as, say, models would understand the health implications of not eating properly. But they said they're okay with that. They're happy to accept that sacrifice to get bigger or to get skinnier. And it's sad in a sense, but it really comes back to that general message that we broadcast to society of what is fit, what is attractive, and what is healthy.
Yeah, and when does it go too far? Personally, I've trained as a personal trainer, so I have my certificate 3 and 4 in fitness. You walk in the doors and the first things they say to you is the two things people want is to lose weight or gain muscle. And it's never, hey, I just want to be the best me I can be. And I think that's really sad to see.
Yeah, and you know what? It seems small, it seems trivial, but a way of getting people back on track and worrying about what is attractive, what is important in a person, it goes much further than aesthetics. Something so easy to do, something so easy to throw around is just a compliment, but the effects that has on somebody, big or small, can completely change the way they look at themselves and feel about themselves, if not for a day, for a week.
I need to put my hand up and just say right now that some days I don't even feel crash hot about myself. And the other day I felt really low, and I got an email of someone that must have followed me on the show and that's seen that I've been doing things for Y Generation now that I'm doing this podcast. And she sent me an email just full of compliments, and honestly, made my entire week. People don't understand the power of words.
And that had nothing to do with you, dieting or, working in the gym.
It's to do with the positive vibes you're like giving off.
Because you're looking for a degree of acceptance. And I'm not saying that that's ego in work there. That's trying to validate yourself and work out, is all the efforts that you're going to actually worth it? Are you getting something out of it? So look, as a challenge, I think the both of us want to put out today from this podcast is 5 compliments.
Go out there, guys, and give 5 compliments to someone you don't even know, or people you know, or whoever you want to give compliments to.
Because you want to know another crazy fucking statistic? 1 in 5 people in Australia suffer from depression.
Yeah, and it's insane. And And oh no, it's not depression. It's 1 in 5 have a mental health issue.
Yeah.
So it could be depression, bipolar, anxiety, extreme stress. And the even worse one to me is that 1 in 3 kids in primary school have anxiety. And that freaks me out because I have an 8-year-old sister. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah. So, if you've got 10 friends, that's 2 people that might be silently suffering that you don't know. And a simple couple of words, a simple couple of nice things that you could say to someone could completely turn their week around.
yes, exactly. So,
That's certainly a topic, look, we could talk about for ages, and we're probably going to come
definitely
back to
could.
that. And if anyone has experiences and stories, please let us know. Email it. We're going to talk about it. But as you can tell, that was very focused around health. The
Yes.
next topic is as well, in a bit of a different way. So it's how the nation views health as a priority. So in the most recent budget that just came out a couple of weeks ago,
our beloved Abbott's budget.
and Joe Hockey MasterChef has come out with one of the first major repeals to the Medicare that was instigated in this country a couple of decades ago. And it's massive. And I'm sorry, it's probably one of the most offensive things to throw at us at a time like this and to say it's all part of the heavy lifting. To me personally, I feel very strongly about Medicare because I have a lot of pretty strong views on welfare.
I also do say that I have extremely strong views on Medicare
Yeah.
also. I come from a single income family. My mum's a single mum, growing up with three children in the family. Sometimes all 3 kids do get sick and we need to go to the doctors. Throwing a $7 fee on that, it doesn't help at all, especially
Yeah, and the precedent it opens up. It's $7 now, but what about next year? What if it's $14?
Exactly, it's just a massive snowball.
And what if, a year from then, it's $50? Like, suddenly people are put off from going to hospital and going to the doctor.
And I find it interesting that we're following the more American footpath when they've actually got the worst healthcare system in the world.
Yeah.
Or not in the world. Like,
Well, no, they do. The World Health Organization
First
just
world.
this last week put out a study on the best and the worst national healthcare schemes going in Western countries. And the number one country that got it was England. Now, England's been in the game for a long time with public healthcare, and they're really fucking good at it. But you know what's funny? They spend 3 times less than the United States because it's efficient, and it's all focused on looking after people, whether it's serious, not so serious. So they've got things like if you go to hospital for something that's not particularly of your choice. So let's say it's an essential thing you need to go to hospital for. You're not paying $1 for that. Then they've got the prescription things. There's a cap on prescriptions. It's somewhere between about 13 to 20 pounds. I think that works out to be somewhere around $30, $40, $50 Australian for any prescription. Now the prescription itself might cost fuck all. It could be a $2 packet of Panadol.
But it could also be a $1,000 packet of Panadol.
Like chemotherapy and AIDS drugs, which can cost for a month worth of treatment, can cost hundreds of dollars.
And it can really put people out of their homes.
Yeah. But the United States spends 3 times as much, loses billions of dollars in productivity because their people are sick, they're put off from going to the doctors, they're in fear of bankruptcy and losing their home for going to hospital with a broken bone.
And as a nation, as Australia as a nation, we can see this and we see it on the news and we see what's happening in America, but we still decide to follow it. And
yeah.
it
2
doesn't make
countries
sense.
we look up to, we can see what's working, what's not working. And now we're rushing ourselves to that train wreck that's going on in the United States. The way I see public healthcare is that it is one of the most primary credentials that you need to tick off as a first world society that indicates you've got your shit together.
Absolutely basic human right.
And it
to
is a
have
human
healthcare.
right.
Definitely is. And I feel like people are going to be put off going to the doctors even more than what they would be now. And patients may be put off imaging if the costs are too high. And then what can that lead to?
Yeah, and this is one of the things that got snuck under in the Medicare bill. So there was $1,000 you could be paying out of pocket for going and get something like a CAT scan or an X-ray.
Yeah,
Because
so there was an article released recently. We're not too sure about we're not too sure about the facts and things like that, and if it's really legitimate at the moment. But there has been an article released claiming that X-rays and MRIs and things like that could cost up to $1,000. So basically, the budget said, "Hey, no, it's only going to cost $7 per visit." But really,
well, that's to your GP, and you
Exactly.
see a lot of radiology centers and other special treatment centers like ear, nose, and throat doctors. They're all private practices, and they currently fall under the current Medicare scheme in Australia. But There's nothing to say that they have to stay on that scheme, and they could easily be wiped off it. And these private practices, although covered by Medicare, they cost a lot for visits, and they cost a lot for the things that they offer, like scans and specialist opinions.
Exactly, and a fellow specialist, Dr. Brian Owler, who would probably strongly agree with our opinion at the moment. She works for the Australian Medical Association. She's actually the president for the Australian Medical Association, and she's come out and she said that there could be a difference between life and death. And pretty much, what if a woman has a lump in her breast, or what if a girl needs to get a prescription pill and doesn't go, and then's not on the pill for a week and gets pregnant?
Yeah, put off because they don't want to fork out the cash to go to the doctor. They fear it's going to cost too much. And this is why I don't get it. I don't get that it's a progressive idea that Medicare is a good thing. I don't understand why it can't be a conservative idea that Medicare is a good thing. You know, conservative politics is all about strengthening the economy and solidifying it and making it more resilient to factors that, you know, otherwise are detrimental to the economy. And this is one of them. Like, to have a sick population doesn't pay. To have people unproductive because they're unhealthy and because they're afraid to go to the doctor doesn't pay. It puts people out of work.
Exactly.
It makes people sick. And quite honestly, it kills people.
And for me, I'm more worried about young teenagers and young adults that are kind of a bit nervous to go to the doctor already. Suddenly they have to pay, and they might not have money, they might not have a job at the time, they might not be on welfare because they haven't got a job, and, you know, with all the welfare cuts and things like that as well, and they could be not able to go to the doctors, and they don't want to ask their parents because it might be embarrassing or something like that. So,
but you know what this
issues.
is? Like, what this all stems back to, it's not just the things that the government seems to be wanting to take away from us at the moment. It's as well as the things that they're imposing on us as well in other parts. It's trying to test how much they can get away with without us getting up and fighting. They're trying to test how far we'll bend over and how deep we'll take it until we finally get fed up.
Amazing analogy.
And completely get sick of it and actually fight back about it. You've got Campbell-Newman's laws in Queensland, and this relates back to it perfectly because this is an example of them pushing the bar.
Yeah.
The bikie laws, they're so vaguely written. Imagine the precedent here as well. And basically, you just have to be riding a motorcycle in a group, and you can just be arrested. No crime whatsoever. You can be pulled over, interrogated, brought back to the police station.
Taking away the basic human right of association.
Yep.
Like, bullshit, absolutely bullshit. And it reminds me back of the New South Wales laws that were recently introduced about clubs being locked out of clubs at 1:30 in the morning. Another thing that I think is quite outrageous, and it's just the government seeing how far they can control us, and it just...
Well, that was signed off by a guy who really loved his wine, by the way.
Yeah,
but
excellent joke.
You know, it relates back to a quote that I heard ages ago. It was by a German
Yes.
intellectual, and it was about what went on before the Holocaust. I think his name was like Martin Niemöller or something. I think you told me the quote the other day.
I'm just finding his name for you now. Yes, Martin Niemöller. Yeah. So basically, the quote says, "First they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me."
And you know what? That couldn't be more poignant at the moment, because that's exactly what this show is about. This show is about shutting up that loud minority of conservatives that are just completely running the show, and their opinion is the most important, even though the rest of the country, that silent majority of people who want to see a bit of progress in this country, are completely closed out and shut out of it because, I'm sorry, we don't fight the battles.
Exactly.
And we're letting these small little battles get won, and we're thinking, oh, we'll win the war though. So
But
again and again, all these small things are happening.
Exactly.
You know,
And-
Medicare and
yes.
what's going on, Campbell-Newman shit at the moment. We just think it's all separate, but it's all part of the big picture. And it's just like what that quote says. And it's going to come back to it, and all the battles will be won by them. And we'll finally look back and we'll be like, shit, we lost the war.
But like mentioned in last week's podcast, how there is more protests and things like that. We don't want to see that stopped. We want to see you guys continue to get stronger as a group and continue to realize that, you know what, we are the loud... is it the...
We're loud. We are a silent majority.
We're a
but we
silent
need to become a
majority,
loud
and we
one.
need to become loud. And so that's what this show is for. It's essentially a platform
We want to help
for ourselves and for you guys.
and ourselves find our voice finally, because the Conservatives have had a voice for a very long fucking time. Thank you,
Exactly.
Alan Jones.
Okay, moving on to another topic that we think should really be pushed as a serious agenda.
Yeah, and goes back to, the majority of consensus at the moment.
Exactly, and so the cannabis reform. Could you tell us a little bit about that, Shane?
Okay, so I spoke in Parliament a couple of weeks ago because state member by the name of John Kay has finally introduced a new bill, and it's about medicinal cannabis reform. It's the first of its kind in about a decade. Keep in mind the what was the old Premier of New South Wales name? Bob Carr. His government actually coined this idea, and they never went ahead with it. So finally, John Kay's come out. Now, this amendment, all it does is it allows terminally ill people.
People that are suffering, real suffering.
Not like, put
Not
their
your
back
hippie
out.
from Byron Bay or some kid from Blacktown or anything like that. Someone that's really in need of a little bit of happiness in their life.
Yeah. Or just even comes down to comfort. What it is, it gives them and their carers a card that basically makes them exempt from prosecution of having drugs, having cannabis in particular.
You can't even have it on the street.
Yes, and that's part of it. You're not allowed to use it in public. You can use it in your home, and you can use it in a medical practice, and that's it.
Like with every bill, there's rights and responsibilities to what people can do within the bill. And basically what we're saying is, why can't these people have a little bit of comfort towards the end of their lives? And we were watching Sunday Night Live the other night, actually, and there was a police officer on the show that was speaking out for his son. And this is a guy who's been completely against drugs his entire life. He's a police officer. He's probably arrested hundreds of kids, been maybe in raids for drugs before.
He was a real advocate for the war on drugs. And it's a little bit like that joke where, if the president got AIDS, they'd have the cure in a day.
Amazing. You know what? That kind of reminds me of another person that I think should be for the reform, however isn't, the Honourable Gillian
quote,
Skinner.
honourable.
Honourable, yes. It kind of ticks me off a little bit that I have to address her like that. But basically, this is a Minister for the Health and Minister for Medical Research. She's also obviously a member of the Liberal Party. Mm-hmm. Not that we have any problem with Abbott. Anyway, let's not get into that.
Old mate.
Yeah, so basically, this is someone that's very well educated about the benefits, knows completely all the facts about how medicinal marijuana can help a person in their last days of life. However, still is pushing Abbott's opinion and Abbott's agenda on the situation.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes you question, what are politicians really there for?
Well, is she towing the line for a party? Is that really what we want? Because, there's a time and place for the party's policies, and there is a time and a place for someone to put their professional opinion in. And, for someone who's the Minister of Medical Research, you'd want to hope she's done a research.
And she definitely probably has.
Yeah, and it leads me to another topic. Like, when you ban substances such as, not just cannabis, but you're also looking at ecstasy, MDMA, LSD, it's completely off limits to the scientific community in Australia. We cannot research it and look at the benefits. So I'm just going to list a few. They reckon...
I've watched an entire documentary on LSD, and the benefits in that can help people with schizophrenia, can help people with depression. It's absolutely insane, and people don't even know.
Now, I'm not ready to coin in and say it definitely, these things are life-saving, but there's potential there, and they know it, and I'm confident enough to say there certainly is potential there. They reckon that MDMA and ecstasy is probably one of the best things that they could use at the moment to treat things like post-traumatic stress syndrome. And when we've got soldiers coming back from 2 wars at the moment, it's not easy for them to get back into society.
And especially with all the talk with Abbott going over to America recently, with Australia might be going back to war following America in Iraq. So we want to have precautions and things ready to be implemented for people that have got post-traumatic stress syndrome.
And there's other things like ecstasy and mushrooms for depression and things like that. And of course cannabis and its more therapeutic and pain relieving attributes that help people who are recovering from really traumatic diseases.
We're not like pro-drug junkies or anything like that. We feel that it really is something that can be looked into further and it should be taken serious.
And it's not even about letting these people get high. Especially with people with terminal illnesses, you try to tell somebody who knows they're going to die that, hey, you know that thing that makes you feel really good, makes you feel better, makes you not worry, makes you eat, makes you sleep, and lets you spend all your time around your family in your final days? You can't have that shit because that's illegal. Do you really think those people give a shit whether it's
No,
illegal?
they just fucking want it. So give it to them and let's not make them feel like
It's not
criminals.
even like it's not even trying to say like, oh, just give it to them. The whole country,
92%, I
that's it.
believe. It was on 7 News the other day. I can't remember what day it was. Really recently, 7 News put out, I think it was a live vote.
It was part of the Sunday night program.
Yes, exactly. And it was a live vote on what Australians thought themselves. 92% of the Australian public.
And this isn't a big leftist group. These are Channel 7 viewers. We all know what they're like.
Exactly. Thank you. Not that we have an agenda either, folks.
This does come back to the previous topics. And it's, when you talk about body image, we talk about, what we really value when it comes to health. And then when we talk about Medicare and, what it's about to prioritize as well and what we want to give to our nation in terms of health.
It's an entitlement, and
for
that to be stripped away, it's kind of disgusting.
Yeah, and it's allowing people to research and to consider alternative remedies. Because let's go back in time a little bit. The way we used to treat mental illness is we used to chuck
shock
nearly
treatment.
like a car battery onto someone's skull.
Literally, I had a grandma, grandparent that went through that, and I've seen I've been told about the side effects and things of shock treatment.
Yeah.
And it's like ridiculous.
Yeah, and things like bloodletting was one of the most ridiculous ones. But these were taken seriously, and then other things came up that they hadn't considered, and then they found out that holy shit, that's amazing. Like I think chemotherapy is a really good example. You fight cancer with something that predominantly causes cancer.
Yeah.
But look, the way I see it, and this applies to nearly everything we've talked about today, and especially with Medicare and about public health care, but with drugs and drug reform. Drug law reform is not an obstacle for social cohesion and social progress, as it so often is quoted as. It is a ladder towards it. It's a way of allowing society to stop being divided and, slowly come together on matters that really mean a lot to us.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point you just made there, Shane. And it's something that I think a lot of the Australian public actually recognise now.
Yeah.
And so we just need to convince the parliament.
Yeah, but whether it's even convincing that's needed or trying to get them to do what we're really asking for. And it goes towards how we view people with drug problems as well, which is very important.
Yeah. I think we need to stop stereotyping people that use drugs as junkies and name calling and saying they're bums, etc.
And criminals, which is something that they're not.
Yeah, exactly. And it's completely derogative and it's completely backwards as a society. And I think we need to start building these people up and looking at it as people that just need help. And
that's what they need. You punish a criminal, but you treat someone who's sick, somebody who has an addiction, someone who is caught up in a drug cycle is sick. Stop treating them like a criminal. Don't put them in jail. That's not what they need to be. They need to be in a hospital. They need to be looked after.
It's interesting that you just brought up the addiction thing, Shane, because isn't there a fact out there that the richest people in the world are actually...
Well, yeah, there's a massive disproportion in the statistics that come out on drug addicts. The majority of drug addicts tend to be people who can afford it and people who can afford private treatment and are not in the limelight and not getting dragged off the street and chucked in jail.
Exactly, because they can afford it, so
and
they can sustain it long periods of time.
The people who are caught up in drug cycles and end up poor and are on the street are the ones who get pulled off the street and chucked in jail, and they're the ones that you see. They're the ones the news say, oh, look at these scummy junkies going around, when that's not the whole story.
Yeah, interesting that you're talking about people that are shown in the media, etc.
And that, I can assure you, is going to be a story for the next episode, or one very soon to come.
Yeah, so I think that's all we really had to talk about for today.
Yeah, look.
Is that all you had to say?
I think it is. No, I think it's that's all we have to talk about today, because we're going to save the rest of it for next time. So we want to keep you listening. You'll notice that this episode is a lot shorter than the last episode.
Yeah, we want to kind of keep you guys on the edge a little bit, like we are. We get really excited with filming and things like that. And basically, yeah, basically just go to our page. We'll put all the sources up there. We'll put everything up there that's necessary for you guys to really get involved.
Yeah.
It's www.facebook.com/thebrainreaction.
Yeah.
And just wanted to say a massive thank you once again for tuning in this week.
The feedback that we got from the first episode was vitally important to this episode today. And a lot of people who gave the feedback are going to see it incorporated. And if you give us feedback, you're going to see it as well, because this show is as much for you as it is us.
Exactly.
We are around to stay. We are loving this. And you know what?
And we're so keen to get involved in the political arena around us. And
what an ordeal we had getting this episode up.
So we'd just like to tell you a quick story. We actually have recorded this a few times. It's funny now.
But it wasn't funny yesterday.
It wasn't funny at the time when we thought we'd done a really good show and suddenly it didn't save to my computer or it didn't save to our producer Adrian's computer.
Big shout out there.
Big shout out to Adrian for staying super calm and keeping us super calm, even though we thought we had some pretty cool key points and then lost them. No tears were shed though, and we just wanted to get back at it and give you guys a show that we really loved and that you guys hopefully will really love too. So yeah.
Till next time, guys, stay tuned, and you've been listening to The Brain Reaction.
Over and out, ferals. Peace.